Well, welcome to episode 2. I'm Dave.
I'm Pete.
And this is the Constant Geekery podcast. So I don't know if you know this, Pete, but more than 1,600 people have either watched or listened to episode 1 of our podcast.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Thank you so much. That is really exciting.
It is. And I've been really excited to get audio-only content up onto Apple and Spotify and the likes of that, which is a new thing. I was talking about it with my wife and saying how excited I was. And what she said is, well, I've always thought that you two had faces for radio.
Harsh. Yeah, here we are broadcasting on YouTube as well, or podcasting on YouTube.
The joke's on her, Pete, because she has to look at it and I don't.
Oh, she chose it.
That's it. Now, before we get started, I just want to do... we had a comment from the podcast last week where we spoke about nVidia using TSMC along with Apple Silicon. So
yes.
This is the foundry that makes Apple's chips, and I said that nVidia were there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Someone put in the comments that nVidia are actually using Samsung.
Yes.
Now, so I had to do a bit more research again to check where I'd got this idea from. They are using Samsung, but they're also using TSMC. So I stand by what we said.
Yep.
In fact, last year, Jensen Huang, the CEO of nVidia, was asked about this, and he said that they had signed up with TSMC, but they were still giving a small order to Samsung.
Right, okay, so a lot of their productions moved to TSMC.
Yes, and they've used TSMC in the past as well. The Pascal chips, those were TSMC, I believe, possibly some others as well. So it's not something new to them. So they're competing for the space that Apple Silicon are buying.
Yeah, and they're not the only ones using TSMC.
They're not.
AMD are using TSMC for their Ryzen chips, which is on a 7nm process, I believe.
Yeah.
And they're looking to also move to the 5nm process that Apple Silicon will be using next year.
That's right. Yeah, so AMD's 3000 series and the new 5000 series are on the 7nm process at TSMC.
Yep.
In fact, they've bought up all available capacity that Apple hasn't taken with TSMC, as I understand it. And in fact, TSMC have added capacity just for AMD.
Wow.
So
great time for TSMC. Really pleased to hear that.
Yeah, it is good. So all of that's interesting. Of course, let's just briefly mention their Zen 3 launch that AMD announced this week.
Yeah, I was quite excited when we looked through this because they've already got the best multi-threaded performance out there, really, haven't they?
They have, and they demonstrated the, let me see if I can get this right, the 5950X. So that would be the top of the line consumer CPU. And they were testing it against the 10900K from Intel and in Cinebench single core, and it outperformed by a margin, not a massive margin, but a comfortable margin.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting.
So just to be clear, multi-threaded, they're already winning, and they're now starting to push ahead on single core as well.
Yeah. I think Intel have been complacent, and they've only got themselves to blame with this.
It looks like they're paying the price for that.
Yeah, and they're still stuck, of course, on their 14nm process. Although it should be said that their transistor density is higher than TSMC for the equivalent process.
Okay.
So Intel's currently working on their 10nm, aren't they? Which is broadly equivalent to TSMC's 7nm. So important to get that across. If that's going over your heads, then don't worry about that at all. Let's move on. AMD are achieving this not through faster clock speeds, but they've improved the all-important IPC figure.
So remind me of IPC, because I can never remember what it means.
So that's instructions per cycle.
Okay.
So for every clock cycle, a given number of instructions can be completed. If you can increase that number, then you can improve the performance of your CPU without increasing the clock speed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is typically a well-hidden thing. You've got to search to find IPC information, and it's a byproduct of the megahertz wars, where the chip manufacturers are all trying to outdo each other. We're going back 20 years here, and they wouldn't give out the IPC figure. You'd go into the computer shop and it'd just be X number of hertz or gigahertz, not gigahertz, megahertz at that time probably, and it didn't really help the consumer to understand what was going on. And still today, it seems a lot of consumers don't really understand that there's more than one factor to the speed of a processor. It's not just the clock speed.
That's it.
So AMD have improved that by, I think, 19%. I think that's what they're saying.
That's a significant margin. So for every clock cycle, so for every hertz of action, 19% more things are being done in that cycle.
Yes.
So that when you put it that way, you can see why that is a significant improvement over something that's doing less IPCs at a higher clock speed, potentially, depending on the numbers.
That's it. And it bodes well for the future as well. Something else they've done, we don't want to linger on this too long, but they've redesigned the core layout of the CPU.
Yes, I've seen this.
So I don't want to get into massive technical detail, but previously, if you had an 8-core Ryzen CPU, it's effectively 2 quad-core CPUs joined together.
Yep.
Which was one of the ways that they got better yields from their processes. But it also meant that each core could only access half of the cache RAM. So now that's changed anyway. So every core can access all of the cache RAM. That alleviates bottlenecks for some sorts of games. And there's a lot of people who are saying this new CPU is going to have massively improved gaming performance.
Yeah, great for the gamers out there. Very exciting.
And of course, the numbering system all makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So this architecture is called Zen 3.
Yeah.
It's the 4th generation of Ryzen, and the chips are called the 5000 series.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave you to track that, and I'll just make sage noises at the right point.
Okay, one other item of news that we need to mention before we get into our main topic for this week, and that is, of course, that Apple have got an event tomorrow.
Oh, is there? Okay, I didn't know that.
So, of course, YouTube is awash with the predictions, the leaks, the rumours, and lots of regurgitated content.
Yes.
What do we know about the Apple event, Pete? Let's just do a quick rundown.
So we've got iPhone 12, very expected. 4 models this year, all very samey, really. All the same screens. So we've got an iPhone 12 Mini, which has got a 5.4-inch screen. 6.1-inch standard and Pro, so that's 2 more there, and then a 6.7-inch Pro, which also comes with a bigger camera sensor, because who doesn't want a bigger camera sensor? Actually, joking aside, in a phone, bigger is going to make an improvement, that's for sure.
Yeah, so not unexpected. Again, we're just basing this on rumours. What actually comes out tomorrow, who knows? Never bet against Apple surprising us. Speaking of surprises, it was nice, wasn't it, in the old days when you used to get surprises? Now it seems that we've got to have everything leaked to us before the event.
Yeah, do you remember when you used to go and watch a film at the cinema, when you could go to the cinema, and you didn't know what the plot was going to be and what the spoilers were?
Oh, yeah. It was good times.
By watching the trailer.
Good times. We're just showing our age here, and we're being grumpy. So getting back to it, the 6.1-inch versions of the phone, of course, Apple's already tooled up for 6.1 inches. The iPhone XR, the iPhone 11, that's all 6.1 inches, isn't it? So those are going to be available immediately, and then we're expecting the Mini and Pro.
November time. And I have to say, out of all of those, the little Mini sounds quite nice to me, something a bit smaller again. Who wants a big phone these days?
Yeah, I think I'd be up for that as well. I'm sort of hoping as well that the iPad Air will go on sale tomorrow.
It would be nice if it actually went on sale, wouldn't it? I did check earlier today. As of today, you can spec it up, but you can't actually purchase it.
No, I'm going to get one of those in, which will be on the YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/constant geekery if you're not watching us on YouTube. As soon as I can get hold of one, I'll get it in and do some testing on it.
What colour would you like Dave to get? Perhaps you'd like to put that in the comments.
It'll be too late because I already promised my wife she's having a blue one, because her iPad is 3 years old. So I'm not just recklessly buying iPads. It is to replace her existing iPad.
Pink one it is then. Okay, good.
I do get to review it first.
Okay. What else are we expecting tomorrow?
HomePod Mini.
Okay.
Everyone's saying that $99 for a HomePod Mini powered by an S5 chip, which is the same as is in the Apple Watch.
Okay, so great if that's your sort of thing. Not expecting the highly anticipated AirPod Studio tomorrow, though, are we?
No.
Which is a shame. I'd quite like to have seen them.
Yeah, I'm interested, but then I've also got the Sony WH-1000, and those are superb. So Apple's going to have to be going some. There's some stiff competition in that market now, and in fact, all of the manufacturers have just released, or recently have released, new generations. So
I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Possibly. AirTags
pushed to next year. So Apple must be not quite happy with these, because there are, Tile is out there, So they must be looking to do something quite special with the AirTags, one would hope, for them to push it to next year. So we'll just have to wait.
And Apple Silicon, we think very unlikely.
Well, yeah. But we did see some leaked A14 benchmarks, and they do bode well, don't they? In fact, I think I pulled them up, but I can't for the life of me remember the numbers. You're quite good with numbers, but I'm old, so...
I recall that single core was benching from Geekbench 5 at around 1500. Now, if that is true, then that makes them comfortably ahead of the A13. And indeed, anything from Intel or AMD. Nothing gets close to that.
Yeah, that's
In
incredible.
fact, nothing touches the A13 as far as I'm aware for single core.
And this is a leap on again.
Yeah. Of course, lots of people will immediately say, but they can't sustain that performance because of the thermal conditions. But we were looking at this as a precursor to Apple Silicon for the Mac specific silicon, which presumably will have the cooling and would be able to sustain those figures. In which case, single core at 1500 is pretty exciting.
Yes.
And multi-core for the standard A14 was looking at about 4100. So I think the current iPad Pro is about 4.7. So it's still not as fast as the A12X or A12Z. But of course, next year there'll be an A14X or something like that, which will be faster. And again, for the Mac-specific silicon, we'd expect better multi-core performance. And just put this in perspective, I'm still rocking the 2013 Mac Pro, and I've got the 12 core in there, and that multi-core bench is about 7.4, something like that.
Right.
So
That's quite impressive.
It's not outside of the realms of possibility that the first outing for Apple Silicon could be up at that level. It's possible if there were more cores.
Yeah.
And better cooling.
Better cooling. Yeah, it makes sense.
And if that happens, well, imagine that, but with twice the single core speed of that Mac Pro. That's a formidable machine.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier. We've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it again. But when you're looking at raw megahertz, that just doesn't factor in the excitement we have about Apple Silicon and what it can do potentially. And we're just seeing all this coming through now, so very excited to see. But probably won't see anything tomorrow, sadly.
No, although we do have a video coming up on Apple Silicon.
We do indeed. Watch out for that one. It will be coming very soon. I'm sure you'll love it.
So let's get to our main topic, because we've already been at this for nearly 10 minutes. So nVidia launched their 3000 or 30 series cards, and they started with the 3080. And let's just summarize the launch issues into
2 points.
2 points.
Well, actually 3 points. Not enough cards. The cards that were on the normal retail channels were bought by bots, and those cards were then sold on other channels like eBay for a significant fee by scalpers.
Yeah, so not a winner. So just to explain the bot situation, that's just these services that are watching sites for immediate availability and then checking out. So you've got a robot checking out. So genuine buyers were finding they were putting them in the basket, going through the checkout process, getting to the payment point, and then it had gone out of stock in that time. Really, really crazy. But before we get into this in more detail, let's just deviate for a moment to get the background story, because we need to get our heads in the same place as nVidia here. Think about their past experiences, and let's go back to the 2080 launch.
Yeah. Okay.
So when nVidia launched the 2080, they changed the name, didn't they, from GTX to RTX?
Yeah, because they added ray tracing.
That's it. So the 2080 versus the 1080, obviously it supported this new wonderful ray tracing technology, and I remember them demoing that, and it looked amazing.
Yeah.
But at the time of launch, you couldn't really go out and choose from a wide selection of ray tracing support games.
No, so when you actually looked at the performance without the ray tracing, it was quite a small improvement, and certainly for many people just not worth the upgrade cost.
Yeah, I don't think I would have upgraded.
No, me either.
Well, you didn't, because I think your gaming machine still has the 1080.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Isn't there? Well, there isn't anything wrong with it. If you're gaming at HD, why would you need more than a 1080? So not much improvement, hardly any ray tracing games. So presumably demand wasn't massively strong like it is for this launch. Now, when the 3080 comes out, we've got significantly better performance, in the
Massive.
previous generation. And we've got this keen pricing as well, thanks to the competition with AMD.
Of course, yeah.
So I think it's fairly obvious, isn't it, that demand was going to be higher for the 3080 than it would have been for the 2080.
Better product, lower price. Yes, that's a fairly easy conclusion to come to.
So you'd have thought nVidia might have come to that conclusion themselves, but
You would have thought so, yeah.
But it seems to me when they're apologising that they're sort of saying, well, we didn't expect this. We didn't expect this. And I take issue with this because they should know their market. You know, they're not selling to first generation gamers now. You know, we go back to, you know, the late 80s, 90s. That's when we started messing about with computers and gaming. And we've moved on from there. You know, those people that grew up in that generation are now, you know, miserable old men like us. And
I'm not miserable. Old, but anyway.
You are old.
Yeah, very much so.
You probably are quite miserable. It's just that you forget about it because you're getting old.
I'm 82.
The thing is, you get to this point in life and you start to have a bit of disposable income in a lot of cases. So when you build the gaming machine, yeah, you know that a 1080 is fine, but, you know.
Why would you not drop in something a bit more specialer?
Well, you would. If you've got disposable income and it's your hobby, of course you're going to buy the best, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies for a bit more specialer.
Bit more specialer. So I don't think it should have been a surprise to AMD. Not AMD? nVidia.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't a surprise to AMD.
No, because, yeah.
Let's talk about the bots purchasing the card. So sometimes this is a case of people, genuine customers, who use these shopping services to get access to products quickly. So they preload their information and then the bot goes and does the shopping for them.
Yeah.
But also used by people who just want to buy a load of cards and profit from them.
Yeah.
And this is because there are people who are just so desperate to have the latest thing, they can't wait a few weeks. They've got to have it now and they're prepared to pay for it.
They'll pay through the nose.
And at the end of the day, it's not our place to, you know, we're not standing in judgment of people who do that. If that's, you know, what you want to spend your money on, go for it. But of course, it just feeds this market, doesn't it, of people getting in, buying them and then selling them on eBay for a higher price.
Yeah, and you also then get silly revenge tactics from people who resent that, are disappointed that they're being essentially scalped or asked to be scalped for more money. So then they put in ridiculous bids for the cards, like $100,000 or pounds, that they clearly don't intend to honour, just to mess about with those sellers on eBay.
Yeah. I heard someone saying it's the seller's fault, they should just put it on buy it now, but that wouldn't change anything either. People will just buy the card and not pay for it.
Well, quite.
You know, let's be honest, it's not exactly difficult, is it, to set up an eBay account and to scam sellers on eBay?
No.
Anybody who's sold on eBay for any length of time will know that the purchasers can do whatever they want and get away with it. So the revenge tactics, yeah, I understand why people might want to do that.
It's a shame, isn't it? But there we go.
nVidia have acknowledged the problem. They issued an apology and they said they were going to sort out demand and get some more cards on the shelves. And
I'd like to just say apologies are really good when you get something wrong from a company, aren't they? You want companies to apologise. I think that's really important.
It is important. A lot of people will say, I think I know where you're going with this, but a lot of people will say that it's not about things going wrong, because things will always go wrong. It's about what you do to resolve that issue. That's always the issue. You know, I've been having an ongoing dispute with a particular company, which we won't go into detail here, but my big issue is not that a problem happened. That's fine. People, you know, are human. We make mistakes, but it's fixing it.
Yeah.
And if you can't fix it, if you make a pig's ear of fixing the issue, then, you know, what's left?
There's very little.
So you kind of hope that someone's going to acknowledge the problem, that they're going to recognise what they did wrong and apologise for it, and then not repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely. Move on. Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see.
What did nVidia do?
Well, they did exactly the same thing with the 3090 when they launched that. In fact, they went a step further and they pre-apologised.
Yeah, let me get this
for
up.
lack of availability. What was it they said?
A preemptive
This is
apology.
priceless.
I think this really shows how out of touch they are. But it says, since we built GeForce RTX 3090 for a unique group of users, like the Titan RTX before it, we want to apologise up front that this will be in limited supply on launch day. We know this is frustrating and we're working with our partners to increase the supply in the weeks to come. So what they're saying is, we're going to have the same situation here, but ever so sorry everybody, but we thought the RTX 3090 was a niche product like the Titan RTX, a product with a completely different name. We thought that they were going to be the same for some reason.
And the Titan RTX is like a beast.
And
they're comparing it to it.
Yeah, and what's the price difference? It's about $1,000 or $1,000.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So the Titan, the previous generation Titan, is about $1,000 more expensive than the $1,500 RTX 3090, and yet performance
is comparable
on some things. Yeah, there are some things where the Titan still has the edge, but yes, performance pretty much in the same ballpark.
Yeah. So pre-apologising and same problems.
I think it's fairly obvious that demand was going to be high. I mean, we understand. Who needs an RTX 3090?
Who needs one?
There would be some people who would need it, but the average gamer, for example, doesn't need the RTX 3090. Unless they're wanting to play games in 8K, and I mean, how many people are actually doing that? And maybe some people are, I don't know. Most people who are buying this card, they buy it because it's the best. And if I had $1,500 burning a hole in my pocket and I was building a gaming rig and I was looking for a graphics card for it, I'd probably also do the RTX 3090, and I would buy it in the full knowledge that I'll never be able to use all of the performance, but I'll buy it because it's the best.
Except you won't buy it, will you? Because there's none available.
It's not available.
So are nVidia really this bad at marketing and working out what their customers are going to want, the sort of supply and demand principle?
I find it confusing. I like to watch the tech channels. I like to watch Linus and Jay's 2 Cents and the other guys. But these guys are doing benchmark tests on all of this stuff, and they're really good at it. Which is why I'm never going to bother trying to get into reviewing video cards.
Nobody wants it from you.
Nobody needs it. There's just better options out there.
Absolutely.
And
so they know what sort of paces these are going to be put through, aren't they?
They've got access to the exact same tools. You can't tell me that nVidia's team don't get the new card and run the same benchmarks that Linus is running on his channel. I don't believe that for a second. So they knew what they had. They knew that this was going to be a comprehensive upgrade over the previous model. So why go to market with insufficient supply?
Do you think they were rushing to get it to market before AMD's 6000 series cards come out?
Yes. I'll tell you for why, because I think they're rattled.
Right.
Sorry for this, for the stagnant pause there whilst I try to get my ancient brain to form some kind of cohesive thought. I think they're rattled by AMD.
Well, they teased the 6000 series at the Zen 3 launch, didn't they?
Yeah, and it broadly looks like they're now going to be competing at the level of the 3080. So if you think about the 5000 series cards, they got up to sort of 2070 level, didn't they, with the 5700 XT? I know they're not identical in performance, but it's in the ballpark.
Comme ça.
Yeah. And now they're at the 80 level.
Yeah.
Which is 10 more.
Very much. A whole 10, which is really important when you're graphic carding.
Yeah.
I believe that's the term.
So they're not at the 3090 level, and I would assume there'll be a new Titan on the 3000 series, and again, AMD are nowhere near that. But they're gaining ground, and surely NVIDIA are watching what AMD are doing to Intel, and I would think that, fortunately for NVIDIA, they're not in the same position as Intel because they haven't been complacent.
No.
They continue to innovate, they continue to push, and I just think that they're maybe a little bit rattled and they rushed it.
Yeah, quite possibly. And that's probably compounded now by the fact that there are reports that the 3080 cards, in some cases, have issues, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, this is a disaster goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? So people are getting their 3080 cards and they're finding that they're crashing.
Unstable at higher boost frequencies.
Yeah, so the cards are built to automatically ramp up clock frequency, much like CPUs do, to give better performance. And it turns out at the highest levels of overclocking or boosting that they become unstable on some cards. And the issue seems to have been narrowed down to poor quality capacitors, pulse capacitors.
Yeah, I think the founder editions have been better quality, and they've not had the issues. But sorry, I talked over you then. Pulse capacitors.
Pulse capacitors, which would indicate it's electrical noise, so interfering with what's happening. I'm not technically proficient enough to explain in any detail why that would matter, but it does matter. It's not just the founder's cards, though, because what nVidia does is they produce a reference design for everybody to copy, but individual companies can modify that, which is why you will see some cards with slightly different clock frequencies. And nVidia founders cards don't follow the reference design exactly. So there are other cards out there that have the better components in, but don't suffer from this problem.
Okay, that's good to clarify.
But some of the 3080s are certainly having issues or have had issues. So how do they fix it?
Well, if you've got a dodgy pulse capacitor, you're not going to go back to 1955 in the DeLorean, are you? Oh, that's a flux capacitor. Driver fixes. Sorry, dad joke.
Driver fixes, yeah. In fact, I think MSI said it would be a driver fix. Could be a firmware fix as well for the graphics card. Either way, it's the same principle.
It's going to do the same thing, isn't it?
Turn it down. Yeah. And some people are unhappy about that because they say, well, I bought a card that was supposed to be able to boost up to X number of megahertz and now it doesn't. So therefore...
Yeah, but are you really going to miss that extra bit?
It's going to be a very small bit. I would have thought most people would never notice it in the real world.
It's like buying... a few years ago, I had a Golf R, which was capable of somewhere probably just south of 200 miles an hour, but it was limited, I think, to about 156. And you might say, well, I'm not getting the full performance of the engine that I have bought in this car. But it's like, well, when are you ever going to use it? Stop whining.
You heard it here first. Pete says, stop whining. Which is more than can be said for some of the cards.
No, I can. Yeah, I can understand. If you've bought something expecting a certain level of performance, expecting that, then I can understand why people would be unhappy.
We mentioned MSI. Let's talk about MSI. Let's leave nVidia alone for a moment. But MSI have been caught.
Yeah, caught scalping. Would you believe?
Yes. Well, we say MSI have been caught. I don't think that MSI are behind this. I don't think MSI is a company that needs to augment its revenue by selling a few extra cards.
No,
a
that's
high profit.
Probably fair to say.
So, just to explain what's going on here, so a company called Starlit Partner, and this is a sales company that has access to some of MSI's stock. We're talking excess inventory and refurb stuff. But this particular company has been caught sticking stuff on eBay. In fact, I think I've got one here somewhere. But I saw an eBay ad, and they were selling it. Yeah, got it here. A 3090 for $2,400.
And what's the MSRP?
MSRP is I'm not sure actually. Around I know nVidia was selling the Founders Edition at about $1,500, but MSI's could be $1,600 or something like that.
But more than that.
Yeah, it's quite an uplift. And somebody did a bit of research and then found that Starlit Partners logo and intellectual property is all registered to MSI.
No, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so MSI released a statement. Shall I read the statement?
Yeah, please do.
Because it's interesting what they do about this and how they respond. You know, we were talking about what do you do when stuff goes wrong. It says Starlit Partner is an individual sales subsidiary working under MSI. They carry excess inventory and refurbished items and would not be given newly released products, such as the GeForce RTX 30 series graphics cards. As such, we have conducted an investigation and found that an error allowed them access to inventory they were not permitted to handle. Starlit Partner has been instructed to contact the individual customers who purchase these graphic card products and offer two options: return the product and receive a full refund, or a partial refund of the amount paid over MSI's MSRP. So, moving forward, MSI will enforce a stricter policy to avoid situations like this happening again. What do you make of that statement, Pete?
Okay, I think the remedial action's quite fair, really, although they shouldn't have been doing it in the first place, one would argue, but there's an error. But there's an absence of an apology in there, isn't there?
No apology at all. And maybe they feel justified. Maybe they feel, like I said, I mean, it's not like MSI need the money from selling a few cards on eBay. So, but somebody somewhere in their chain has been making money on the side, and it's embarrassing.
Yep.
And you'd think that they would take the step to offer an apology. And, they lose a little bit of brand credibility by not offering the apology.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Always apologise if you're in the wrong, or even if it's something that's kind of outside your control, like a computing error or something like that. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was. Still apologise.
Well,
but
they said there was an error that allowed them access to the inventory. It wasn't an error on Starlit systems, was it?
No.
It would be an error on MSI systems, so they are responsible.
Yeah, one would. That's a natural conclusion. But their remedial action's good.
It is good, but some people aren't happy about that.
Okay. Why not?
Well, suppose that you were one of these people that were desperate to have a 3080 or a 3090.
Mm-hmm.
So you head over to eBay and you buy a gigabyte card from some third-party vendor, and you pay top dollar. You're paying, 40, 50% over MSRP. So that's manufacturer's suggested retail price, by the way, just in case you're wondering.
I said MRSP earlier, which means nothing.
I'm sure if we had enough time and we were quick enough of thought, we could come up with some
rude acronym.
But we won't. I think if you were in that position, you've bought the gigabyte card, you could have equally bought the MSI card, but, Joe Bloggs over here who did buy the MSI card, well, he's now getting a refund.
Well, assuming he bought it from Starlit Partner.
Assuming he bought it from Starlit Partner, he gets a refund and you don't. So him in the same position as you was prepared to pay more money, but now he's being rewarded with. So I can understand.
I can see why people would be upset with that, and I do empathise with that.
I don't imagine any of Starlit Partners customers who bought the cards and got offered a refund were upset with it.
No, I'm sure they're delighted.
Yeah,
but there is a moral to this, isn't there? Which is don't be an early adopter.
I'd never do that.
No. So when you're an early adopter, you have these challenges. You have the challenges of the supply of the product. You often end up being a beta tester, Apple looking at you there, and you often, end up paying more for something, both in terms of cost here and time and all the hassle involved with it. So really, being an early adopter is not a good idea, is it?
No, it's a terrible idea.
When you're getting your Apple Silicon, by the way?
As soon as it's released. Honestly, Apple can't take my money quick enough.
He's got it all ready. He's got a bot ready to go. Except you're not going to scalp anyone with it afterwards, are you?
I'm not. I'm going in with my eyes open. I'm buying it from the purpose of testing it because it's genuinely interesting. I'm going to make some YouTube content, and if it's good, I'll keep it, and if it's not, then I'll sell it on afterwards.
So you're taking the hit so that you guys don't have to take that hit. So we're being the early adopters to save you the pain. You're welcome.
So I'll tell you, there's one thing I won't do, and that is...
Anything for love?
I won't do that. If we get to Apple Silicon launching and I can't get hold of one, I will not be going on eBay and paying someone 50% over the asking price for one, because that would be crazy.
Not even Starlit Partner?
No.
Okay.
I need to get one straight away to get the benefit on the YouTube channel. Obviously, you need to... There's no point in doing it 6 months after it launches, so it's important to me to get in early. If I can't get in early, well, then I'll just write that off and we'll do something else instead. So I'd never pay somebody like that because I fundamentally disagree with profiteering, and that's what it is. And people have been doing that over the current pandemic as well, haven't they? You think of in this country with various products that you need, like hand cleaning gels,
toilet roll.
Yeah, and people selling this stuff for crazy prices. It's profiteering, is what it is, and it's just morally wrong.
And it's unkind to your fellow man.
It is, and we're nice people, so we won't do that. So there we go. Some moralising for you on the Constant Geekery podcast this week. Let's conclude and say what we're going to talk about next time.
So we're going to talk about Apple's new releases that are coming out tomorrow. But the plan is to do that next week, unless, as we said earlier, something very left field, unexpected comes, a one more thing that we absolutely have to jump on, in which case we might do something a bit sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. If they launch Apple Silicon, then expect some sort of video up on YouTube, or I don't know, a special podcast episode. We'll do something. We are going to sit and watch it. Now, last time, of course, we sat and watched it and then immediately did an episode. I'd like to get to bed at a reasonable hour this time, because for us the event is at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah. And
So
you're still recovering from that late night, to be fair. You've got some rings around your
it's
eyes.
past my bedtime, Pete. So we'll watch it. We'll set up a camera or two just to get some reaction shots in case they do anything exciting. But my expectation is that we're probably waiting for November for the exciting stuff.
Yes, which is not far away now. And speaking of November, we'll also be looking at the AMD Zen 3 a bit nearer to its release date, which is November, I believe.
5th of November.
Ooh, remember.
Which will mean something to the UK watchers, but not the rest of the world.
No.
So, yeah, I'm quite interested in AMD Zen 3. I've been toying with the idea since I moved over to DaVinci Resolve on video editing. I've been toying with the idea of a PC. But it all depends on seeing what Apple Silicon's like. If my 2013 Mac Pro is choking a little bit with things like H.264 content, it's not very rapid with that
I remember you saying.
For various reasons. Doesn't have the hardware inside it like modern computers do to decode that stuff. So I'd be quite interested in finding another video editing solution, whether that's an Apple Silicon Mac or whether I build a PC on Zen 3. Don't know yet, so interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say, there is an example of not being a fanboy, because your mind is open as to what the best solution is, rather than saying it will be Apple.
Yeah, I am completely open. I enjoy it all. Although I will say, if Apple could offer the complete package, then I would prefer that, because I just my own personal preference, I prefer Mac OS. But
yeah,
there we go. I think we are probably over time yet again, Pete. We're supposed to try and keep this to half an hour. So
sorry, guys.
We'll call that an episode. Thanks so much for watching and or listening, depending on which you're choosing to do. The podcast is available on pretty much all the major platforms. I think we're just waiting to get approved for Google. I think most of the others is already up and running. So if you want to just listen to the episode instead of watching our ugly mugs, you can do that.
It's a great way to get to sleep at night, apparently.
Apparently. And if you're listening and you've not watched any of the video content, then you can hit us up, youtube.com/constant geekery for various tech-related content and excitements. So if you are watching this episode on YouTube, then the eagle-eyed amongst you might have just spotted that there was a little edit at that point, and that's because Pete forgot to format the memory cards.
I did forget
and I blame
to
you
format
for
my
that.
memory cards. And to be fair, I am going to... You blame me, and you're right to do so, because you said your memory cards need formatting. I said, no, there's plenty of space left on memory card 2. And to be fair, there was almost enough space.
There was that idea that I'd have to sit talking to you for another half an hour, Pete. I was in distress.
Well, we can only do it once a week, really, because that's all we can cope with.
Well, there is that restraining order as well, and we need to comply with the terms of that. Sorry, you need to comply with the terms of that.
Get away from me, then.
Anyway, so basically, even the camera couldn't be asked to listen to us anymore. We got to about the point where we were just concluding and saying thanks for watching. So I think that's all we're going to do. We're just going to say thanks for watching or listening, depending on which platform you chose. We hope to see you again or talk to you again next week, where we'll have something interesting to do with tech to share with you on the Constant Geekery podcast.
Cheerio.
See ya.